So this is the first tutorial where we're now going to start doing the new Facetto chat application I've been talking about. So this is going to be the next chat application from start to finish for a company called Facetto, which is one I'm a co-founder in. And this is going to be made entirely from ground up, and this will be the very first starting point. So I've spent a little bit of time making a logo and a window, like the blank window that we want to start with. So this is a little logo, a little like emoji, and then I've picked a decent font that's got a free license, which is Lato, which is just Lato fonts.com, and you can download those fonts. And then I just made a nice, clean, modern-looking window. So it doesn't look much right now, but trust me, this is already a huge task just to get this, nice, clean window showing. And this is how it'll look on like Windows XP and 7 and 8 and everything. This is going to be completely customized. And this is just a Photoshop file I just mocked up. So now we've got to actually make the WPF. So this is what we're working on. This is what we want to create. So let's get straight into it. This is going to be a long process, so I'm going to try and go as quick as I can to keep the time down. Create a WPF application. We're calling this Word, so that's what we're going to call the actual product. And then this will just create your blank WPF application. We want to add the logo that I created, so create a new folder called Images. Add another folder, we'll call this Logo, and then just right click on Logo, Add Existing. And if you go to, this is a Git repo, so I'll give you the link in the description of the video where you can get all these files. Change this to all files and import the icon and the two logos. Just ignore the Adobe Illustrator. And then you want to right click on Facetto.word project and click Properties. Change the icon to the new icon. We'll open up the main window. Change this to vertical. And we'll just quickly add the icon, being Images, logo, icon, small, will be fine. Let's just press F5, see if this runs. Oh, it's not icon, is it? It's logo. Keep thinking it's called icon. Change that to logo. So we've got a blank window. Now, this is the default toolbar and the default window made by Windows. So if we were going to keep it that simple, fine, we'd pretty much be done with the video now. But the complexity comes in where we're now going to make a completely custom window. So we're not going to go off this standard appearance right now. So we're going to start with adding back the previous relay command and base view model. This will go into another project shortly, but for now let's just put these in a folder we're going to call view model. Add existing item. And then if we go to, I think it's C# tutorials, WPF, the last one we did on the video, directory view models base. So you can get these two files from the last video. They'll also be in this Git repo when you pull this code anyway. Add those two. Just go and change the namespace to match our new namespace. And now we need to add for this to work, we need Foddy Weaver. So we'll just right click on References, Manage NuGet, Browse, Property Changed, .foddy, install that. And that'll go ahead and add foddyweaver.xaml, .xml rather, and all the references you need. So that means this base view model will now work. We'll just quickly go and add a new function here I forgot to do. We want public void on property changed. and the name. And this is just so we can pass in a value and actually fire the property changed event from within our own class, which we'll need later on in this video, as you'll see. And that really is as simple as that. It just literally fires this event and passes in the name. So that's that done. While we're in the NuGet package manager, in order to make this window custom, all you have to really do is change the window style to none, and then because we're going to have these rounded radius corners, we'll have to have allow transparency to true. And if you just press F5 to run that, you'll see now that you'll have absolutely no adornments whatsoever, and you've got no ability to do anything. The drag, the resize, the buttons, everything's disappeared. This is now just a blank canvas, and that's what we're going to be working with. So that's got us to the blank side. Now, in order to Microsoft realized this was a fairly common thing to strip out the the adornments around the edge and restyle them. So they've actually created a package, and I think it's called Microsoft.windows.shell. You install that, and then we'll add that to the project admin when we get to the actual main window. So that's all we need with the NuGet package manager. We've got the logo added. We'll now add the fonts. So as I mentioned, we're going to use a font called Lato. So just right click, add a folder, call it fonts, and then add to that folder existing items. And again, if you go to back to our repo, Faceto Word, go up one, resources, fonts, Lato, or you can just download them from latofonts.com, I think it's called, and just add all those. And then we'll reference these in a resource dictionary. So in order to reference the fonts, we need styles. So let's go ahead and add a new folder called styles, and then add a new item to that. And styles go in what's called a resource dictionary. So just type resource. You want this resource dictionary WPF. We'll call this fonts, and then you get this. You don't want .styles at the end, so just change your namespace back to just faceto.word. And then we want to add the fonts to here. So we'll come back and do that in a moment. We now want to we'll create all of the blank style classes that we know we're going to need. So when we come to do this form, we're going to have like texts here, we're going to have buttons here. This is going to be a button to open a menu. We're going to have some colors for like the the grays and the backgrounds to get them sort of standardized. So let's just copy and paste this fonts file we had, and let's create all the styles. So we'll have one called colors, which we're going to store some colors in. We'll have one for button styles. We'll have one for, I'll just call it text for now, for like text boxes, text labels, all kinds of things like that. And then we'll add one for windows in terms of when we style this window. We'll do it directly in the window initially, but then we'll move over to actually putting that style directly in this style here. And now we want to let's see what we want to do next. We want to go to the app.xaml and reference all these styles so that they're available all the way throughout the application. So inside the application resources, do a resource dictionary, and then you want to do a resource dictionary, and you want to merge dictionaries, and then put a note here before I forget, because I always forget this. The order is important here. So if you naturally add, say, the lowest level first, like colours, which is probably going to be used throughout everywhere else, and then fonts, and then go ahead and add your actual styles, because they'll be added in order of importance. So if you add colours first and then, well, say you add buttons first and then colours after, and the buttons was trying to find a colour, it wouldn't work. You'd have to then reference it inside of the button style as well, which is just a bit more work. So I tend to try and reference these in sort of order of importance, like the lowest things first, like the fonts and the colours, and then your actual styles on top of that. So you just do styles colours.xaml, and that should reference colours. Do the same for all of them. So we've got buttons, fonts, text, windows. So we'll do fonts next, then we'll do buttons, texts, and windows. And now we've got a load of blank styles that are now available in the entire application. So that's all that out of the way. Let's go and now create the actual font style we were talking about. So we want to, in this style, there's like a special way of defining font families. So it's called font family, and then you need a key, which is, you know, the name of the actual font. So we're going to have font Lato regular, and we'll have Lato thin as well. So like have a thin and bold, and that'll do us for now. And then I think you just close this, and this is where you have, similar to the resources before, you have // twice, application, semicolon, 3 colons I think it is, /, and then at this point, same as, you know, this looks all weird, but just basically type it and know that's what it is, and that just gets the package of the application, and then starts looking in effectively this root folder now. So now we want to go into fonts, and then again another little trick with fonts. Once it's found the folder, that's fine. It'll now scan all these fonts for you. It won't be the name of the font in terms of the file name. Instead, if you right click the fonts and open the folder, and you just double click on one of them, it's this name here. So Lato space black is for like the black one. We're going to use Lato regular, so let's have a look at that. So it's Lato space regular. So what you do here then, after the /, once you're in the folder ready to get the file, you put a hash and then the name of the font that you saw just, which is Lato regular, and that should find the font. Copy and paste that, we'll do thin, and I'm guessing it's thin, but let's double check. There we are. Yeah, so Lato thin. So that's the weird and wonderful way that you add a font, is to do this pack, then go into the folder, and then do a hash, and then the name of the font that's in there in terms of when you open it up on the computer. So we should have now have the font. Let's go and try and use that then. Let's jump into the window. I think this is just complaining about nothing. Sometimes it does this. You just open and close Visual Studio or rebuild. So I've got a grid. Let's just do a text block. Text equals. I've just had a new keyboard, so my typing's a little bit funny at the moment. Welcome friend, and then that's, I guess, your regular font. Make it a bit bigger so we can see. So that's your regular font, and then now if we do font family, and then I believe it'll be a static resource, and then it's found them there. So Lato thin. Let's change this to a stack panel. So there's our Lato thin, and then Lato regular. So you can see they are, in fact it looks like it's already defaulted to using the Lato font, which is quite interesting. I didn't know he did that. So I'm guessing that's just found the first one you specify and decided that's the default in the application. Let's try and swap them around and see if that's what actually happens. No, so it's sort of picked. I don't know how it's managed to pick the Lato font there, but it seems to have anyway, which is not a problem for us because we're going to use them. So there's the fonts. We know they're now in. There's a little bit more to this now. So when you create styles, or create controls rather, you want to try and default. Really, we want this Lato thin to be the default for the whole application. So to do that, we want to style, and we want to target every control. So this is sort of the lowest level we can get to for setting a font. We'll give this a key, and we'll call it base style, and we can use this then as sort of a generic style for every control in the application if we want to set any defaults for, you know, globally. So we want the font family of everything to have a value of a static resource. It's not found it, which is interesting because it's right above. I think it will find it, it's just a compile time not showing up. Oh, it helps if you type right again. There we go, Lato thin. So this will now set a font family. Now we need to apply that style, as well as to control, to a few other key styles that tend to not inherit the control, or at least even if they do, they don't tend to carry those effects over. One of those is the button, which is a very funny thing to style. It can be really annoying to try and gauge style. We just base that on again the static resource and base style, and yep, that's it for that. Copy and paste this a few times. We'll do this for label. What's another one? I think text box, text block, I think, maybe. I think we have to create another one for text block. I don't think that inherits a control somehow. Let me just check. No, it goes straight to framework element, UI element, visual. Yeah, so the text block won't be able to inherit from this because it's actually a different type. So we'll make one specific for the text block here. So target the text block, call it base text block style, and this can be based on the base text block style. And then there's, let's say, list view is the only other one I can think of right now. So all we've done there is created the lowest level we can for, like, you know, common elements, which is control, and then for a specific one you do like this, you have to give it a key, and then you have to then just specify the target type without a key and base it on your keyed style. So this basically sets, sort of globally, as in a lot of places, the Lato font. So we should now just be able to, in the application, create a text block, or let's say, see if a button works. I know this is the funny one. See if this has got the Lato font. So you see that hasn't got the Lato font there. And I think that's because it creates text blocks dynamically. Let's try a label. It could also be that we just haven't compiled. Yeah, so labels worked. Text box has worked. Oh, wait, there. It hasn't worked. We haven't even tried it yet. Yep, so text box has worked. So it looks like we've got the font globally. Enough for now anyway, enough to carry on. And then we'll now want to do the easy stuff. We're trying to get as much of the easy stuff out of the way as possible. Want to make some colours. So these will be used for, like, the header here, which we're going to have like as the foreground main colour. We want the foreground light colour, which is basically white. We want sort of a few levels of grey for these bars and fades and buttons. So let's go ahead and create some colours. So specify colour, as you'd imagine. My IntelliSense is completely dead, but never mind. So I'll have to do this completely unaided. The colour key, again, so we can find it. We'll make one called background light, and we want that to be, say, quite a light grey, so say EF, EF, EF. And then you'll find you usually need brushes as well, so we'll do solid colour brush, and then the key is, and I'll just give it the same name, background light, and then we'll call it brush. And this will be, it's fun without IntelliSense, I think it's colour equals, and then static resource, and then the name of the colour. And that's how we'll create the colours. Just check I've done that right, see if it builds first. I'll be surprised if that works with no IntelliSense. Okay, seems to have. See if I can get me IntelliSense back. Would be nice. Hey, there we go. So you create the colour, which you can use then in some instances, and then you create a brush from that colour as well. We'll do that for each colour. So I'll just copy and paste. We've got background light. We'll do one that's even lighter for like this fade here, this really faint gradient. We'll make that, say, FA, which is almost white but not quite. Change everywhere to very light, very light. That gives us that. We'll have we want the foreground main for the text, which is basically the your main text color, and this is slightly off black, so it's like a grey. So I'd say we want probably about let's go for about 6/8, and we can always tweak these anyway at once we actually get the application visibly done. And then we want, what else do we need? We'll have, we'll create some, maybe, I don't even know we'll use them, we want like a black, so let's just call it foreground very dark. In fact, it's completely dark, but we don't know that. So foreground very dark brush, and this is just a black colour. And then we'll create just, I guess, a foreground, we need the foreground light, don't we, the white itself. And I think that'll do us for now. So foreground light. And that wants to be pure white. So there's some colours that we'll come back to and use, as we make the app. And now, let's go ahead and start the view model. So let's actually move these into base. And then the whole window, in this case, because this is such a heavily customized window, we're going to make a view model just for the window to handle like the sizes of, let's say, this header bar, and the sizes of the resize when you go to the edge like this and you see the resize handle. You want, specify the size of that and the drop shadows and all the other things that we need. We need a view model for that. So let's go ahead and just make a view model. New item. Just a class. I should have done new class instead of new item. New class. We'll call this window view model, and then we want this to be inheriting from the base view model, and then this is the view model for the custom flat window, something like that for now. And then because this is going to be manipulating the window quite heavily and directly, let's create the constructor and we want it to have a window passed in, so we can control the window directly. There'll be quite a few things we need to do. We need to store that as a private variable. and then just set it here. That's the constructor ready. Then I think we'll leave that where it is for now. Like I say, we're just trying to do all the heavy, well, the easy stuff first. So we need to link that view model to the window. So go to the code behind the window, and then here just say this.dataContext equals a new window view model, and just pass in the window. So now this window should have, we should be linked to this view model. So let's just make, try and think of a few things we need, or just at least one. Let's go with, well, let's just do a test string for now. And let's try and bind to that. So we should just be able to do a text block, text is binding test, and just run, and we should see the my string being filled in. Oh, there we go. You just about see it because we've got this borderless thing at the moment with nothing that you can really see. But there's the text. Just change it back to remove the window style and allow transparent for the moment, and then you can see it a little bit better. So there's the string, which we'll make bigger. We're going to get this nice and sort of a chunky visual window. So really now we're down to digging into the actual XAML. So we want to give this window a name, because again we're going to need to access, we might need to anyway, I'm not 100% sure, but we might need to access this window from inside the custom styling in a moment, and then we can link back by the name. We've got this window style to none, so we remove all the borders and all the buttons to start with. We allow transparent so that we can do cornered things. Let's make it also always start up in the center of the screen, because that's annoying when it just keeps popping up in different locations. So now it should open up in the center of the screen every time, which it has there. Again, you can't really see because we've got the borderless thing at the moment. We've already set the icon there. The title will say welcome friend. We'll set the height and width a little bit larger, just so we can see more. Set this zoomed out a little bit. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. Hide this. Hide this. There we go, so I shouldn't have to zoom the screen so much now. So we know the view model's working, so let's just pop back and remove that temporary string for now. And then remove that. Change that back to a grid. Right, so in order to get started with making this custom window Chrome, as it's called, that NuGet package we installed, made by Microsoft, this Microsoft Windows shell, you can now access that in anywhere. So let's just access it here. Should be called window Chrome. .window Chrome. And now in here, you specify the window Chrome again. It's a lot of window Chromes being specified. And this is where you can set up all the names of whatever this class does. So one of them is it adds, basically this window Chrome adds the basic support back. So if we run it now, this might already fix it though, but let's delete that a moment. Now if we run this, you'll see that you can't drag, you can't resize, so you click and nothing drags. There's no corners to resize. So this window Chrome adds the ability pretty much to do that, is to resize. So I think it's called resize border thickness. Now we want to keep this all bound, so let's do binding and we'll call it resize border thickness, and then we'll go add this resize border thickness to the view model. So in here, and it's going to be, we want to resize border first, which will have, I think it'll be an int just fine, and we'll set that to, let's go with 6. And that's the size of how far in from the edge in points, which is sort of pixels, but on high density screens it's a bit more than that. Basically the border around the window that you get the resize handles appearing, so like when you hover here somewhere. Well, you know what we mean when we get this resize popping up like here. So it's that amount of space you've got there, which on this is about 2 pixels. So we're going to do 6. We're going to keep it nice and easy. And that's the number. We want to specify the number so we've got an actual value to work with. And then you'll notice this resize border thickness. If you press F12, takes you to the definition. It's a thickness. So to keep it simple and not have to do value converters, we'll just make another one called, well, of type thickness first. And we'll call it the resize border thickness. Simply a getter. And this will be return new thickness, and it'll be the resize border. I'm just trying to think ahead here. It's going to be the resize border initially, which is fine. But when we come to have this window open, if you look at the screenshot, you can't tell here, but on this window paint itself, look at this faded drop shadow all around the window. That's grey. We're going to need that on our window. So in order to do this drop shadow, we're going to need sort of a container around the whole thing. Then we're going to need to push that in by a margin, so that then the drop shadow around the main window can come out from that. So we're going to need an outer margin. So let's just create an outer margin variable as well. Outer margin size, and we'll make that 10 for now. And we might as well do the window radius while we're here. And we'll do that 10 as well, I think. And by window radius I mean this curved edge around the window. So the margin around the window. So drop shadow. Radius of the edges of the window. So we've got them 2 properties. We'll also need to expose them as public properties as well to bind to. So we'll have the what do we have? The window radius and the outer margin. So we need these are also going to be a bit special because we'll just put them as normal for now. Well, no, actually. So it's hard to explain until we do it, but I just know from past experience. So we're going to have a margin. So our application, see if I can do some drawing here. So I'm going to just fill a block. There we go. So our application is going to be, the actual window is going to be like this. It's going to be around by this outer margin. So that inside we can have this drop shadow like we've got around paint coming out up to that part. So this is the outer margin from there, you know, to the actual window, which is all fine. But what happens when you maximize the window? This is effectively your window. So when you maximize, you'd actually have this border all around the window when you come to maximize. So for the property, the thing we bind to, so there's the inner property, which is the outer margin size. And then for the actual property, which we'll call outer margin size, when they get the property, we want to return if the window that we're controlling, if the window state is maximized, so full screen, you want to return nothing. Otherwise, you want to return the actual outer margin size. So when we maximize, the outer margin will become nothing. And so this will then become this, and it'll maximize properly. So that's what we're doing there. To set we want to just set the value. There's nothing really to do there. So outer margin equals the value. We can copy the comment from the outer margin here. And then we have the window radius, which in fact is going to be exactly the same. So again, you don't want this curved radius when you're full screen, so just copy and paste this. It's basically the same. Change this to window radius, and then get the radius comment, paste that in. When it's full screen, you don't want a radius, otherwise you want the radius, and you also want to set the radius. So that's your window radius and your outer margin size that we can actually bind to when we come to do those styles. And they will also then change when the window resizes. Well, they won't, but we're going to make them now. So we've got the window. You now want to hook into listen out for the window resizing. So that's going to be window state changed. And I'll just do, there's no point doing a full function, we'll do it right here. Just do an inline. So when the state changes, there we go. When the state changes, because this is an event, it's not in our view model, this is just an event of the window, we need to let our view model, or in this case let our whoever's bound to our view model, know that they need to readjust for these two values that are changed based on the fact that it's resized. And also we'll make sure that actually these are private, so we don't need to do them. In fact, we need the outer margin size. I forgot that was what we were doing. We need also the outer margin thickness, so copy and paste that, because we're going to put the margin on a border, and the margin is a thickness, as we were doing just before we started this. So outer margin size, like we did here for the resized border thickness. You also need the outer margin size thickness, and that's just the same as the resized border, and it's going to be the margin resize, so that's for that. So we need to make sure both of these change, the outer margin and the thickness, the two types. And then the same for the window radius. We need the window radius, and I think we'll need what will we need? Window radius, I'm trying to think a bit too far ahead here. I think it's corner radius on a, let's have a look, it's easier to just do it. So we're going to put this on a border, corner radius, F12, yeah, so it's of type corner radius. So we'll need, as well as the value itself, the window radius, like we've done for the outer margin. We'll also need a corner radius version of that. It's going to be called, minimize that, we'll call it window corner radius. And what will we want to do with that? I think we'll probably just want the actual the window corner radius. I think we just literally return same as this, just make a new corner radius. And that should get us the corner radius and the margin. And then I won't go too far ahead here because I'm starting to get confused myself, trying to go too far ahead before making the UI. But we know we need the window radius around here. I know that's going to be a border, so I know we need the corner radius. I know we need an outer margin to allow for the drop shadow. So we've got the outer margin, then we've got the thickness, which is what the margin will be. And then we've got the resize border thickness, which is how far the cursor can be in here for it to register as resizable. So this needs the same. In fact, the resize border will be 6, but then again, so if this is the border around the window Chrome is going to presume our window's this big, so it's not going to account for this white space. So if we set the resize border to 6, we effectively want the resize to be 6 pixels from in here, like from this area. We don't want it to be from out here. So the resize border thickness that we set on the window Chrome needs to include the outer margin size, so that it steps in this far and then adds our 6 points to it. So even though the resize border, that's the real value, the thickness that we bind to this window Chrome here, we want that to include the outer margin size. So that wants to be plus the outer margin size. So the size of the resize border around the window, taking into account the outer margin. And then, in fact, we want that to change as well then. So we now need to fire off change events for all of these, every one of them, whenever the window resizes. So here, call on property change, which is that function we added to the view model here, and that just fires off an event to the view model. And we want the name of resize border thickness, fire off events for all properties that are affected by a resize. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to change that, that, and that. So every time the window changes state, see if we can run this. Again, let's try and make this so we can actually see something at least. Run that. We should at least see now a red window. We should also now be able to resize. So there you see the resize handles appearing now. That's because we've set this resize value here. And now if we resize, the state won't change. But also, you should see now, see we can drag as well. So this window Chrome has added the ability back to drag. It's added the resize. It should also have added, I think, double clicking on the header part should make it maximized, which it does. And you can see now it's fired off our window state change. So now we're going to recalculate the resize thickness, the outer margin, the margin thickness, and you can see they've already calculated to 0 because we're now maximized. So these are all working. Now we're going to maximize big red screen, which is a bit scary looking. So we've got the basics of the window. So we've now got a blank red window that we can resize from all corners. We can drag it around, and we can double click to open and maximize and minimize. Well, let's keep swapping this code around every time I open and close. Right, so finish this off. So we've got the header. So this is called your caption, this top border, and like paint, it's this part here, the bar. That caption height we want to set. So again, we want to bind that. So caption height binding, and we'll call this title height, and we'll go back and add it to the view model, and that'll just be a simple property. So public int title height, the height of the title bar caption of the window. Set this to about 42 so it's nice and big. And the only way you'll really see that, if we run this, Basically we just randomly click and drag, and you'll see that like if we click here, you can't drag because we're not in the caption header. Go a bit further up, and there you can see we can just about start dragging here. So there's your 42 on your header. So we've got a decent sized header now where we can click and drag, which is going to be, I didn't mean to click reset there, it's going to be this header. And you have to make this whole, you've got to remake all these buttons now, and the icons and the text and everything, because the window Chrome gives you the ability to, you know, click your mouse and do things, but it doesn't make any of the UI at all. It's up to you to design your form. So that's the header. And then we'll also just make sure, I don't know what it is by default, it's called glass frame thickness, and that's the, in fact if we remove, oh no, you won't see it anyway, but the glass frame is like, when you used to look at Windows 7, it's like the border that it naturally puts around your window, where Windows literally adds that blue border around. So we set the glass frame to 0, making sure that on all windows it's going to be completely seamless, it's just going to be blank. So that gets us the window Chrome. So that's all we need to do. That there is the window Chrome. That's all it can do. That's all bound now and set up, and there's nothing more to it. So we now need to make the actual the window. So we want to style the window. So we'll just put it directly right now into window resources, and then we'll move this off into another file afterwards. You need a style. Target type is going to be this window for now. Again, we'll change this afterwards. It's going to be, and the window is called main window in terms of, you know, the class name, not the name inside of XAML. So it's going to target the main window, and that should get us a style for this window. And then we want to do a setter with a property of template. We want to override the entire window template, and then we want to do setter dot value. So here's the window template now. The window template I think is a control template, and again we'll have to specify that that is of type, and this time it can just be a window. You know, it's not specific to our window now. This template is just for a window. You can see already it's completely wiped out the window. There's now nothing there because we've just overridden the template and literally put nothing inside of it. So I think if we run now, you won't even see a window. So you'll just get the debugger coming up but no window. Yeah, so there you go. We completely destroyed the window. There's not even a window now. So at least we know the template's working. So the first thing we want to do in that template, we want to put the border that we were talking about. So we want this outer topmost thing is going to be the border. We'll give that a name in case we need to access it, called container. In fact, I think we'll need, to get this drop shadow thing, I think we'll need 2 borders. Let's just do 1 border for now. So let's ignore that for the moment. Let's also comment so we don't forget where we are. Main window with resizable outline margin in terms of this thing, the outer margin. So that's the border. We want it to have, let me think this through. In fact, it just needs to be, no, ignore that. This is just the topmost border first. Wants padding inwards. Wants to be bound to, what did we call it? Outer, got no IntelliSense for that. Outer margin size thickness, I think it was. And then inside of that, we want to put a grid for the main content. Let's just make this grid red. Let's make the border green, just so we can visually see what's going on here. Oh, or grey, well, whichever, that's fine. You'll notice this doesn't show here because the binding isn't happening right now. It's, you know, at compile time it's figuring that out. You can put a colon here and do a fallback value and do, say, 6 or 10, I think we set it as, just so we can visibly see a similar result over here. So that fallback value happens when it finds nothing, which at design time it's just not finding that value. When we run, it'll actually find it from our view model. So it'll find the outer margin size thickness from here. So if we run this now, we should see basically we should see that grey outline. There we go, and we've even got the rounded, I didn't think we'd done that yet. Looks like we've got the rounded corners on. It's interesting. Maybe that's default on the window Chrome. Let me just make sure that's nothing. Because the window Chrome can have a radius for you, but if we use the Windows Chrome radius, we can't do the drop shadow. Because then the curve will be here and there's no way to do a drop shadow, so we're making our own. So I'm guessing that corner radius was added by the window Chrome. Let's check. Yeah, so there we go. So now we've got a perfectly rectangular window. So the grey is our official window. That's going to be the transparent part. That's going to be this hidden part here. So we'll just remove the colour grey. And then you can see you can resize down to about 6 pixels into the red, which is what we want. We've got the 10 margin there, then the 6 inside the red. So let's turn the grey. Let's make a comment what this is. So this is the outer border with the drop shadow margin, and we can remove the grey. Now we know where it is and we know it's fine. This grid is the main window outline, which we'll keep red just for the moment, so we can see it. Then inside the grid, we're going to want a border. So this is where we want then the main border, and this is going to be this border with the radius. So let's do a border, corner radius is binding, and it's the window corner radius. And what else do we need? We want the background, so we need the window, the actual main window background, which we created inside of colors. This one, foreground light brush. So I want this foreground light brush as the background color. And I think that's all we need. Oh, we want the drop shadow, obviously. So in fact, let's remove this grid red now, because the border should have white. Again, you're not seeing it here, so we can do a fallback value of white, just so we can visibly see the same thing. Inside of the border, there's something called border.effect, and in there you can do a drop shadow, which is lucky. That's how easy WPF makes the drop shadow. Shadow depth is the distance from center, so you can see that's going so far down. We want it to just be right behind and just a fade around. We'll have a really light fade, so like 20% brightness. Just want it really faded. And let's run that, and we should have the corner radius, which we'll add a fallback value to as well. So there you go, it's already looking nice. So you can see we've got a white window, we've got a nice curve, and we've even got the drop shadow already. So it's coming along quite quickly. I think that's a bit larger than our corner radius here, but that's fine for now. Let's roll with that. We can drag it around. Let's make the corner radius fallback value, so we're visibly looking the same here. Window corner radius. Oh, that was 10, wasn't it? By default in ours. So we've got this far. What do we need now? Now we want the main content, I guess. The actual, there's the outline, which is just, we've got a grid, and then inside the grid we've just put the border and let that fill the whole grid. And then we're just going to put another thing in the grid, so that's going to sit on top of the border, if you will, instead of inside of it. And this is going to be now the main content, if you will. So this is the main main window outline, main window has the window border and drop shadow, I think is a more descriptive name. This is the main window content now, the main overview of everything, and this is going to be a grid. So now we're inside, effectively ready to start making the header and the main content. So we want some rows. We want 3 rows. We want 1 for the header, 1 for this drop shadow, because the header we've defined a size for, so we need to set the grid rows height directly, and this drop shadow is an additional. So I want a row for the header, a row for the fade, and then the row for the rest of the form. So row definitions, and the first one is the title bar, I'll call it. Row definition, height is going to be static, and it's not a static resource this time, it's just static. Actually no, what am I saying? It's in the view model, it's going to be the binding. And then it's going to be, do we call it title? Can't remember the name of it. We call it title height. In fact, have we even made a title height? Because this is going to be, this height is going to be, I know, a grid length. So we need to make actually make something called title height grid length, I guess we'll call it. Go back to the view model. Now I know we made title height, I remember doing that, there we go. Similar to these, we need grid length of title height. So we just basically return a grid length containing the title height. Now we combine to that, which we've done there. Default is 42, so let's put a fallback value of 42, again, so we should visibly see. So that's the row for the title bar. Then we want the drop shadow. And that's just going to be an auto, so it just sizes to whatever height we decide to make the drop shadow. And then the actual the window content, so you know, whatever pages we start to add to this window, and that will be then taking up the remainder of the space. So we've now got the main grid, we've got the row definitions, so now we want to make the actual the header itself, the title bar. So for the title bar, we will do a grid. We'll make it a grid with 3 columns. So 1 for this icon, the rest that fills up this text, and then 1 for these buttons. So I want a grid. I want it to be in column 0, which by default it is, but I just like to explicitly state. And because this is going to be containing elements that are part of the window Chrome, we want to make sure the Z index is up from 0, otherwise the general grid itself will overlay. It sounds weird, but effectively you won't be able to click like these buttons, because when it's in a window Chrome, the outline, it's slightly different. So just type Z index, you get panel.ZIndex, which I guess is what is now a Z index on a grid, and just set that to 1, and that just brings the grid to the foreground. You can see there now we've got a definition. Let's just change the background color to see this and run the application just to make sure it looks the same. And there you can see, and now we can also prove that because we're drawing this directly, let's make sure we can only drag. Now you see we can actually drag, we can drag there, which is slightly off, so there's something wrong with our calculation of size here, because we've got a few pixels in the white there we can still drag. So let's take a quick look. I think the title bar, grid length needs to also include the resize border, because this grid is going to be inside the resizable part. So we just tweaked, we added the title height grid length is including now the resize border. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Run again and we should now, so there you go. So we just go onto the red, we're exactly right. So now the red area, the header, is what you drag the form on, and everything else outside of you can't drag. So that's the header size done correctly. It doesn't look very good, so let's start making this header bar. So we need some column definitions, and as mentioned we want 3. So we want the first one, it's going to be the icon, and that's just going to be width auto, just to fill itself, whatever size the icon is. So call it icon, then we'll have the title. And that's going to take up whatever space is left. And then finally we'll have the window buttons, like the maximize, minimize and close buttons. And that width will be auto again. So that's the column definitions for that. Now we want to try and bring this over a little bit. I want to add the icon, so you know, the icon like this Visual Studio one up here. So again, keeping the comments, icon. Now we need a, this is where we're going to have to start styling, because it's going to need to be a button, because when you click this icon up here, or right click in this case, you get a this menu, the system menu, so we want to keep that behavior. So we need a button. We need to make a command as well. So the binding will be, we'll call it menu command, because it's the system menu. It doesn't exist, so we'll make that in a moment. And then the content of the button wants to be an image with the source of the images logo small.png, I think it was. And there's the image. If we run that now, you'll see why we need to make a custom button style, because we've got, and you can also see we can't click that button at the moment, so you see there's no hover effect. And we've got this grey border. So again, when you're in Windows Chrome, you need to specify a property on the button. So, and I think it's called something hit test. Is it Windows Chrome? Yeah, Windows Chrome.is hit test visible in Chrome to true, and I think that then allows this element to be, you know, interactable when it's over the window Chrome. So that's now got your hover, but you can still see you don't want this as the icon. We want it to just look like this, just an icon. So let's fix that with a button style first. So let's just jump over to the buttons XAML we made, and let's start by making a few styles. So we're going to start with we'll make a style called hoverless first, which just simply removes the hover effect of the button. So we'll have, and we'll also need to reference the colors and the fonts, because we're going to use both of those in this style. So we can go to the app.xaml and just copy this resource dictionary, paste it in here, not the actual resource dictionary part, and delete those, but just keep the colors and fonts. Remove the folder because this is in the same folder as those. So now we've referenced the colors and the fonts, we can now use them in here. So let's make a new style. Oh, I've lost my IntelliSense again, let's try and get that back. There we go, so we've got a style, target type is going to be a button. I think there's a button, just button will do. I think there's something called a button base that goes a bit more lower level, but button's fine for now. Key of this we'll call hoverless, keeping it nice and simple. We want to first remove the background of the button, so that horrible grey. Property of background, values transparent. That'll remove the background. Then what else do we want to do? We will remove the border, because it's got that border on as well. So just change the border thickness to nothing. And in order to remove the hover effect, let's just override the template and just make it a basic blank template. I think that's probably the simplest way. So set the value. I'll have a control template. I need to target the button. And then in the control template, this is now the actual button itself. We'll just do a grid with the background color of whatever the template states. So in this case it'll be the transparent, but if we want to override that, we'll pass that property through. And then we'll have, in fact, no, let's make that a, yeah, because we need padding as well. Let's change that to a border. And we want padding, and again, template binding to the padding. So the thing we'll honor is if they set the background, where's my mouse gone? If we set the background to a color, or if they set padding to, you know, set the content with, like this, we want a bit of a padding around the button. We want to click out here and still click the button, but we want, you know, the image to go smaller. So we'll keep the padding and the background color. And other than that, we'll just then put the content presenter itself in there, and by default we'll just center the content horizontally and vertically, and that'll do. So by default you'll now have, if we make a button that's like this long and there's some text in, it'll just center to the center, which is I think the default behavior anyway of a button. So let's test if this works with hoverless. So just remove that, well, let's leave that in for the moment. Change the style to static resource hoverless and run. And we should now, you can already see here it looks like it's gone, but let's just confirm by running. So there's a big button now, which is just an icon and there's no hover effect. Let's check if the padding works, so we can make that smaller. Button style, let's just chuck some padding in here and do, say, 8, something like that. And again, it looks right there, but let's just confirm. Yeah, so we've got like a padding now that works around there. So let's just delete that and delete the style. We now want to move this window Chrome hit test visible to a style as well. And we want to make one specifically for this menu button, if you will, this system button. So we'll make another style, and we'll call it system icon button, I think we'll call it. So there's your main hoverless button, and we can now base our next style on that because we want all those properties. System icon button. Copy and paste. Oops, gone even larger. There we go. Target type button based on hoverless, and we'll have a key of what did we say we were calling it? system icon button. So now this is a new style. We just want to add that window Chrome hit test this. So let's take that, put that, and in the style we'll set that to true. So the properties of that, the value is true. So that means it'll work when it's on the window Chrome. And we'll set a padding. Basically just what we did when we were testing visibly, but this is now just done in a style. Give it, say, 10 padding, and now just set the style up to that. System icon button, and press F5, and let's take a look if we're happy with that. And then all that's left is to, yeah, looks good to me. We now just want to bind, we want to create this menu command. So if we go back to the view model, properties, commands, and we'll want a few, so we might as well do all the commands now in one go. So let's do iCommand. We've got the minimize command when you minimize the window. Got one for maximize. We'll have one for the close button. I'll have one for the menu, the system menu up there. Just call that a menu command. And then now we need to create these, so we'll initialize them in the constructor. Minimize command is a new relay command. We did this in the last video. And it's a simple case of Windows state equals minimized. That was easy. The maximize behaves slightly differently. So when it's maximized and you click the maximize here, it goes back to normal. And when you click it, when it's not maximized, it maximizes. So basically, you could do like an if statement that says if the window state is maximized, then the window state is normal. Else, if it's maximized. Instead, if you take a quick look at window state, it's an enum. So normal is 0, maximized is 2. So if we do similar to the Boolean toggle we did in the very early videos of just basic C#, if we do an XOR on maximized, if it's already 2, it'll go to 0. If it's 0, it'll go to 2, and it'll like basically jump between 0 and the value that you're toggling with. So to maximize, you just do this little, I always call it the duck. It looks like a duck's eye in its beak. And this is an XOR, so basically it means if the window state is this value, it will become 0. Otherwise, it will become this value. And because the window state 0 is actually the other state that we want anyway, we want to go from maximized to normal and normal to maximized. This is a cool little trick to do that. So that's a nice way of doing that. You've got the close command. And then on the close command, you just want to do window close. And the only one that needs any sort of slight amount of work, which actually we probably can do this in a one-liner as well. The menu command, we want to do, there's something called system commands dot show system menu with the window. Now we need a position. position. Get the position of the mouse relative to. Trying to think what just the get position of the mouse is. We want the position based on the screen. Maybe primary device dot. Don't want relative to a specific item. Directly over target. Okay, let's do a quick Google. It's the quickest thing for this. It's fine. We just want to get the actual screen position of the mouse. So let's have a look what Google says. There we go, cursor.position, apparently. How did I miss that? Oh, I was doing mouse. So, cursor dot... Where's the cursor? System Windows input. System window, that's the forms. See if there's a WPF one. We can use forms, but I want to just get the WPF. E.get position. Using mouse down. Don't really want mouse down. E.get position this, point to screen. So they're just using the, doesn't look like they've even got one in WPF. They're using the Windows forms. Okay, so looks like we are control.mouse position. Windows forms, we don't want that, using Win32. Okay, as nasty as that is, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use a DLL import to get this this mouse position, because I can't believe WPF doesn't have that built in. So let's just add it to a helpers, we'll call it, down here. So private helpers. And we've got a DLL import, which just brings in a normal DLL file, so you can call things from it. And this is like C++ code, if you will. int32, and we won't bother commenting this. This is, well, we might as well. Gets the current mouse position on the screen. So now we can just call get mouse position. And we'll make that a private function, and that will do. So there's the helper. So now we can show this menu, and we'll show it at the current mouse position. Do we return a point? I think we do. And there we go. So this is already bound, menu command, to the button. So just clicking, left clicking. And then it should basically show the menu at wherever we've clicked. So let's just test that works. It'll also test that DLL import. No, that didn't work. So we're down there. Let's see if that's... Okay, let's just check the X and Y aren't messed up there or something. Just flip them around. Can't see it being the wrong way there, but maybe this is a... Nope. Let's just have a quick read of what they said about that. Using Win32, yeah, it works. Point to screen. Oh, maybe we've got to convert that point to screen first. So let's just pass that point in and see. We just need to do a translation from the native position. I think that might have been a position relative to... No, it's even worse. Okay, let's kill that. Let's just try doing then, because we had a cursor dot... no, it was mouse dot get position of the window, and then point it to the screen, maybe. Never had so much fun just getting a mouse position before. Okay, let's check just that. If not, we'll do a little bit more Googling. Can't believe there's such limited support for the mouse position. Now that looked a bit more promising. So that is actually the position inside my form that I'm clicking. So we're getting somewhere there. That's the position, but so that should work. So that's the position inside the form. So we can actually do then get position. We know that's the position in the form, so we just need to add. It's gonna have to be a non-static. We can now just add the window position itself. So the left and the top. I think that should work. Oops, hang on. Now I've done mouse position. So move that. We don't need a DLL port now. Get mouse position. This will make sense in a minute. I'll explain when I'm done. Get rid of this now. We don't need that. I don't need that. Raw position equals. This is the position of the mouse relative to the window. We should post this solution on Stack Overflow, but never mind. Add the window position, so it's a to screen. So that's a new point of position.x plus the left and position.right plus that. So as long as I'm not being crazy, this should now finally work. And basically we're just showing the menu where the cursor is on the screen. That's all the pointers. There we go. So now if you click that button, this menu will appear where you're clicking, and then you can like close or minimize, maximize. So much for Google helping. There's the commands. So we've done the menu command. We can't do these commands because we haven't made the buttons yet, but they're ready to now use. So let's go back to the UI. We've done the little icon. I think that's fine. We'll use that as is. Now we need to do the title text. So we need to do this text over here. So for that we will do now we want this text, if this text becomes really long, we want it to shrink. We want it to always be able to be visible. And at the same time, if the text is only, a single letter or small, you want it to fill this, expand vertically wise to fill the size of the header that we make it. So to do that, we'll use a view box, and basically whatever you place inside of a view box expands to fill. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. So, and it also shrinks to fit as well. It basically keeps it at the size that it should be. Place it in the center column. We'll just set a little margin up so it's not, well actually we'll leave the margin off for now, and then I'll show you what happens. So inside the view box, we'll do a text block. We need a new style for the text block as well, but we'll do that in a minute. So we want to have text binding to, we want the title of this window. So that will be, I believe, a binding with a relative source, because we're inside a template here, bear in mind as well. We're in the control template. So we need the relative source, and that is going to be a relative source, and it's the templated parents. That gets us back up to the actual window itself, and then from that we just need it to be the title, which is the actual title of the window here. So we've jumped up to the templated parent, which is the window, because we've templated the window, and we get the title. So that should be that. Close that off, and close that off, and let's just run, well we can't see, let's just do a fallback value so we can actually see something. Welcome friend, I need to put them inside quotes. Can't see anything. Relative source does not support converting from string. Oh, it's lost the what the hell's going on there? It's putting equals for some reason. There we go. So you can see we've got a title now, and you can see the view box. What the view box has done is made it fit, so it can't expand anymore. So if we did, like, say, font size equals 200, you can see it's not changed. The view box is keeping it in there. If we do font size 0.1, I think we've managed to break it there. So the view box should have a stretch option. You can play with them. So there's fill, it just literally fills all the space, doesn't keep any uniformity. You've got uniform, which is I think just is what by default it is, so it'll keep it smaller, but it doesn't look like it's making it grow. And then I'm guessing uniform to fill, just fill it all up with it. Yeah, so actually it doesn't look like it'll make it larger, won't stretch it, which I thought it did. Font size 1. In fact, I think it is. I think it's just anything less than 1. What's the default? That's 3, 4, 2. Yeah, so as long as the size is, bigger than a small font, which it's going to be anyway, in this case, it's going to then keep it within that size, so you can always read it. So if we did, say, well, let's run this first, F5, and so you can see it actually in the tile. We should also change and you can see the fonts styled based on our style. In fact, it doesn't based on our style. We haven't put a style on yet. It's that text block has pulled in, by the looks of it, our text block default style here to set the font up, so we know that's working. Let's make the view box. Okay, we haven't got a background for a view box. Let's wrap it in this. Our favourite colour, red. And just have to put that on the border for now, just to show you. I'm just trying to visibly give you an idea of the size. So you can see the view box has stretched the font, or in this case it's shrunk it to keep it within that red. So you can set, if you remove the view box, you can see the font size by default is tiny. So the view box simply makes the font fit, the content fit this border. So it's always, whatever size we make the header, then the view box will keep it sort of that size. So that's what that's doing. So the title's there. We want a style for this now, because we want to style this to have this appearance, which is the font, a little bit of a margin, and the colour as well, like the foreground colour. So let's just do style, static resource, call it header text, and let's just go and make that now. Go to texts, and we'll just make this header, which will be nice and easy. So we just want to style a text block. So style, lost me IntelliSense again. Text. Target type is a text block. We want to make sure we're still based on the base style, so we maintain that font, so we don't have to redo the font style. We also need to name it. So the key is header text, we called it. Then properties wise, we want the foreground to have a foreground main brush color, which is like just slightly off black, so it looks more subtle. Then we want the vertical and horizontal alignment to be center, which I think they already are by default in the view box, but we want to make sure we keep it, you know, that they definitely are centered. And we want a margin, so a slight margin on the top and bottom. Let's just go for like an 8 margin. Let's see what that looks like. Well, it looks quite good actually. Let's run this and see. So you can see there now we're not too bad. There's the picture we did, and this is ours. So this is a bit small, but we can make that a bit bigger. Let's just reduce that margin slightly. Again, we can tweak this all day long as well to make it sort of pixel perfect, but let's get a basic. There we go, much better. So you see we're much closer to that size and style now. That's basically almost identical there. Let's add these 3 buttons now. So we've done, where are we? Done the title. So now, as well as the title, we now need the window buttons. These are going to be, we'll do a horizontal stack panel for these. We want to put this on second column, which is the third. Number 2 is the third one in. And now we want 3 buttons in here. So I've got 1 button. And we're going to do, we can achieve these because I did this in Photoshop. This is just the Lato text. So we're just going to literally have text as the button and make that the actual button. So the content for the first one, the left side one's an underscore, which, let's zoom in here. You can't really see much of there, but let's put 3 in. Do like a retro window and an X. You can see the buttons there. And we obviously need a style for this, so if we run this you'll see the styling isn't great. So they're just basic buttons with no margin. They're also not clickable because they're in the header. And they're also overlapping the corner there, which we'll fix afterwards. So let's first make a style for these buttons, make them a little bit more expected. It's going to be very similar to the other button. So let's just go to the button styles. So we've got a hoverless button, we've got a system button. We'll call this one window control button, I think. So style, target type, as a button. The key is window control button, and again it wants to be based on the base style. This one we need to do this so it can be clicked. We want to have the background transparent again. So actually it's there as well, we can copy that. We want some padding. Again, we'll use that. We'll do a bit less padding though because these buttons want to be nice and big. Want the foreground to match the same as the header text does. So this foreground color. And then let's have a look. Well, let's get the what do we want? We want the template again, very similar to this one. So let's start with this template to get a basic a button. We've got the background, got the padding, text block vertical, horizontal. Now we're going to need to replace this content presenter, I think, with an actual text block for the hover effects of the buttons, because we're going to need to set the background color of the button. Actually, we might be okay leaving it as a content presenter. Let's leave it as a content presenter for now and see how it goes. So I think I don't think the font works in a content presenter. I think that's why. Let's run. Oh, we haven't styled it. Let's stop this when it opens. Let's apply this style to the buttons. I think at the very start of this video we showed that the buttons don't tend to style by default. So, although it does look like they've got the font now, well, let's see. So they're now really thin. For one, that's a bit too thin. And we need the hover effect of the colour. And then they also want to be bigger than that. It's hard to tell. Let's colour this background again so I can see what's going on. Because they don't look like they're filling up the space to me. Oh yeah, they are. Okay. Just remove that content presenter so I know exactly what's going on. Just do a text block, vertical alignment. We're going to have to set the text now to templated parent, templated content. Let's just see what that looks like. It's almost like they've got too much. They seem too small to me, they do somehow. Let's remove this padding a minute. Let's just see how much of an effect that's having. And that's actually spacing them out. So let's leave that padding in. Let's add a vertical. Let's make sure this going full size here. Vertical alignment. Stretch. Well, I think they are already. Yeah, I think that's probably big enough. We want to space them off the side maybe a bit. That's just a bit too close to the edge. So let's get the hover effect first so we can see something happening. So in this control, to do a hover effect, you do style.triggers, and then the trigger, thought it was property. Yeah, property is mouse over, I think it is. Value of true. So when the mouse is over and it's true, we want to set the background color to, in fact we need two styles here because we want the background of the other buttons to be grey and we'll make the close button go red. So we want the background of this to be a static resource, and we'll do the background light brush. See if that's light enough. Let's just start with that. There we go, that's quite nice. I know what these need. These look a bit too squashed. They look sort of squashed this way. They look like they've been pushed in. Let's do a layout transform. Let's stretch these out so they're more like squares, because you can see these rectangles are you know, a lot higher than they are across. We could pad them out, but I want this font to also grow a little bit. So let's also add a what's it called? It's a layout transform. Layout transform setter.value scale transform scale X. Let's try it 1.5 for now, and this will physically stretch them, but keep them. It won't just be like a graphical thing. The layout will stretch, so the buttons will be clickable and things. Oh, that looks much better. Look at that now. Could probably go a little bit more, maybe, or a bit more padding. That's all right for now. So there's sort of a nice effect on the buttons. We want the close though to be red, so let's make one more style. And what will we need to do? We just need to add I want to override this style. So this is going to be the window close button. Type of button. Key is window close button. And we'll base it this time on the window control button. So it's exactly the same, but we now want a new trigger. And the trigger will be property is mouse over, value of true, and then when it is over, we want the setter to change the background to, and then this time we'll just hard code red for now because it's a pretty explicit color. If that goes red, we want the font to go white, or in this case we might as well use our white value, which is I think foreground light brush, I think. And then we want to apply that Windows close style to the close button. So change that from control to close. Oh, there we go. And then you'll notice we hover up here, you can see it's got a corner. When we're hovering, it's actually cutting the corner. So we need to fix that. So what we'll do is we'll do a opacity clipping on the part that has this radius. So if we just go back up, and where we've got this border, so we've got a grid, we've got a border. Because this has got other styles on and drop shadows and stuff, we'll make another one. And it doesn't really matter about the border being visible or anything, because it's just going to be used as an opacity mask. So opacity mask for corners on grid. And this one will be border. We'll need to reference this, so we'll call this container. Background, I don't think we care about this background actually. I think we just need the corner radius. I think you need a background in order for it to be, in order for it to work though, otherwise it doesn't size. So let's just make this a background light. And then if that's showing through at all on any sort of, the very corners here, if there's any sort of clipping from the graphics, it'll give us sort of just a nice grey border, sort of to supplement the drop shadow here. So we'll do the background, and then effectively just the corner radius is what we really need, and that needs to be the not static resource binding to the view model. It's the window corner radius so it matches. So it's the same thing as here. Just do a fallback again for visibly checking here. And that's it. So this is really just, this border is the same as this border, just without the drop shadow effect. And now we want to reference this container inside now the main content, so the whole thing wants to now clip based on, you know, that corner, if you will. So corner clipping, I think it's grid.opacity mask or something. Yep, there we go. And you want a visual brush from visual, and then that'll be binding, and we need to now bind to an element. There we go, container. And I think that's all we need. So let's just check that. And now that button should, as well as everything else, should clip within that sort of region. Or not. So that hasn't worked. Let's have another little look. So we've got the grid, got a container, it's got a background, it's got a corner radius, and then this has got corner radius and a background. It's the same with the blur effect, and we've got the content and the visual mark. I wonder if that's not finding that element name. No, it should do. Visual, grid opacity mask. Oh, I know why. There's a strange thing in the window Chrome when there's no content. So right now we've got no content at all here. This is the actual Windows content. There's nothing in there. When you have nothing in there, and I think this is it, then it causes the clipping to not work because then the border doesn't size. So let's just put a button in or something just for now, just to see if that's right. But I'm sure when you have no content, it sort of messes up the clipping. No, it's still not working. Okay. Let's do a clean build in case it's whoops. Didn't mean to run code analysis. Cancel. Clean the solution. Build it again. How is it up to date when I cleaned? No, it's definitely not clipping. So we've got the grid, visual, element container. Let's move these around. Just try and force it to kick in. No, that's not working. Okay, we'll come back to that one. We'll do that last. So I'm pretty sure that should work. It might just not have updated yet. There might be a bit stuck in memory. So let's leave that corner piece off. We've got the buttons. Let's link in those buttons. So we need the same like command here for the buttons. We've already made all the functions, so just paste the commands in. And then we've got a minimize, maximize, and close. Let's run that and see if they work. So minimize as maximized. Maximized as maximized. I think we must have typed that wrong then. Oh yep, that wants to be minimized. So minimize minimizes, maximize maximizes, click it again and it goes to normal. Double clicking the bar does the same thing. Clicking there gives the menu. Going to the edges we can resize. So you can see there, that's what I mean about the view model. If you see the title shrinking to fit. We also want to impose a minimum size, so we don't want it going like, in fact it can go completely invisible here. So we want to make sort of a minimum size. So let's go and add that to our view model. I think we'll put it on. So let's just jump back to here, properties, and we want window minimum width and window minimum height. And we'll make them like 400. And then we'll give them a comment. Smallest height. And then we just bind that to our window itself up here. So min width is binding minimum window width, height. So that should make it so we can't resize too small. So there we go, that's as small as it'll let us go now. All the buttons work there. Close button works as well. So we're not far off here. We need to add this. Let's add this little underline and fade to finish off the visual. So where do we put that? We've got this drop shadow, so it's going to be column 1 of this grid. So we've got column 0. Oh, I know why that thing isn't working. We don't have a column for the window content yet. We never made it. So if we do a drop shadow here, let's just work our way through. We might as well get the drop shadow out of the way. It's going to be a border. It's going to be on the second row, so row 1. We're going to make it, I don't know, 6 high. It's not going to be very big. Let's start with that. The way we're going to do it is, well, I think we're going to do it. It'll be 6 high, so it'll look like this, over exaggerated, but say look this big. Whereas you can see the start of it here, this top bit is effectively the top border. So as the rectangle goes, as the border goes, we're going to just do a top border for the line, and then internally the background we're going to fill with a light grey down to white internal, so that the rectangle is going to be a border on top and a fill in the body, and it's going to be 6 high. So that's what we're going to do. So border thickness, they go left, top, right, bottom. They basically go clockwise from left, I think. So it'll be left will be 0, and then the top we want to be like a small thin border. So this isn't pixels, this is like points, if you will. So 1 will actually be quite thick, surprisingly. So we'll have a border thickness left of nothing, top of a thin one, and none on the other 2. And then we don't just want normal borders. So you can see there's the box now, this little 6 pixel, well, this 6 point box. We want the, you can see on this style, notice I made the borders here, and then it fades out to white there, and fades out to white there. So we want a linear gradient going from white to grey, back to white again. So this is the top border line, or what should we call it now? The underline, that'll do for now. And this is going to be the border, yeah, the border brush. So that's the thing that's going to do this top border. We want a linear gradient brush. Want it to start at x0, y0. Want to end at x1, y0. That's a percentage of its size. So that's basically going to start from the left and end at the right. And then you want now to put in gradient stops. I think you just put gradient stop here. The start color on the left will be the static resource foreground light, so that's the white color, and the offset is 0.0, so well, basically 0, but it's basically a percentage from 0 to 1, as in what point of the left to right do you want it to be. So the very left we want to be white. We want 3 stops. We want 1 in the middle at halfway, 1 at the end. So the 2 ends want to be white, there and there, and the center wants to be this grey color. So we've got a few grey colours. So let's go with, let's just start with foreground dark. We got a foreground dark colour. I thought we created a foreground dark. Okay, let's just try. Okay, let's just do foreground main then. And let's run that and see if we get the border that we're looking for. We might have to add another shade. That looks quite nice. So that's the cool looking little underline. Now we just need the this faded, well, it's a drop shadow, but we're making one basically by just doing a fill. So that's the underline, and then this is going to be the drop shadow. So again, this is now going to be the background. What is it? Border dot background, isn't it? And then this is going to be a linear brush again. And it's going to be x0, y0, and this time x0, y1. So it's going to go from top to bottom. You can see it there already appearing. You only want 2 offsets this time. Move them around. That's the top one, that's the bottom one. Go into white, you can see there it's appearing. That's way too dark though. We want we've got a very light. Yeah, background very light. There we go, and that's a nice fade. Let's have a look at that. And there we go, that looks pretty spot on. So there's the screenshot and there's ours. This is a bit big now, we'll step that slightly down. But other than that, this is actually looking pretty much complete. Okay, so we wanted to make that header font have a slightly bigger border, didn't we? Let's go for 6, somewhere in between. And now finally, to fix this this rounded corner issue, we should now just have to do the main window content, like the content that's now inside here, the sort of the page content. So we'll call that page content, and that is going to just be, we'll do a border again. Grid dot row is going to be 2. We need some padding just to step it in. We'll do a slight bit of padding. Do binding to the, we'll call it inner content padding, and we'll now go and make it inner content padding, and I think we'll just give that a, now padding's going to need, I can't think what padding is, let's have a look. We've already done it once I think, but it's a thickness, so we need a inner content padding and an inner content size, I guess. So I think we'll make it just the same as the resize border here. It's this, you know, we'll just share that thickness. It's okay for what we want. So the inner content of the main window, or in this case the padding of the inner content of the main window. Call this inner content padding. I forgot already, I think it was thickness. and we'll just make it the resize border. So we'll just basically have a 6-point padding in a content padding. And then inside this border we now need to finally put the content. So this content here that we've got in the window, because this is the template we've overridden. So all this is templated stuff around the window. We now need to put the Windows content back in, and we're going to put it in this space. So this area here now becomes whatever we then write in the window. So if we add a button, it'll fill up this space here. So to do that, you just do content presenter, and that I think is all we need. Oh no, you need the content obviously binding to the actual content. It's going to be template binding content, or not. Oh, it helps if you spell content right, staring me in the face. And there you go, the test button's appeared. So let's just run this and let's see if that's also fixed the rounded corner issue we had. So there's the content, there's the little fade. Hey, and there we go, we've now got a corner. Now one thing we made at the very start that we were talking about but we hadn't even done was this, where are we? The resize border thickness. No, not the resize border thickness, the outer margin size. So the size around here where we've got this slight faded drop shadow now. And the window radius, so these curves. When we maximize, these should go to 0, so it should get rid of that corner, and it should also get rid of the margin, which it does, but we are, looks like we're too far over that corner slightly, and we're also, you'll notice, covering the start menu down here. Now I'm aware of the start menu issue, but that also doesn't seem to be quite right there. Something's too large there. We're expanding too much, but I've got one fix first, which I won't bother explaining because I've come across this before. We're just going to add, so go to the project, add existing item, and if you go to the resources, there's a window resizer. This is in the Git repo, that's in the description, and just add this to your project. And this is a window resizer, so I'll just create a folder in here just called window for now, and drag that into it. And then this effectively fixes an issue, as the comments state. It fixes an issue with the style window style.none, where it covers the taskbar. And all it does, in really quick and short, if you've done C++, you'll know that when you create windows, you have this window procedure, which is like a message pump of all the messages that the window receives. And we just listen out for the get min max info, which is called when you maximize the window. And then in that call, we then just get the size of the monitor, the screen that it's currently on, and get the maximum size. So you don't need to understand this. All you need to do is create a new class of this for your window. So we can do that in the view model. So we'll go to the constructor here, and then all you have to do to fix that issue is fix window resize issue, a new window resizer, and pass in the window. And let's run that, and that should fix the covering of, in fact we haven't got a toolbar, let's show the toolbar. So if we maximize, we can now see it's actually fixed all the sizing issue. So you can see now the small border around the control, the corner radiuses have gone, whereas now if we get rid of that fix here, just comment it out, you'll see the issue that you have without this fix. So you maximize, and you can see the content's disappeared down here, it's gone below the bar, and also you can tell at the very top corner that it's basically oversized, the size is just not right, and that's basically just a bug in the window style.none of WPF and Windows Forms in general. So this fixes that size. And I think that's actually everything. I mean, this pretty much, if I just remove that button, go back and remove that. And now let's remove the red. I'm not going to be quick enough. Let's do that again. In fact, let's keep a colour, otherwise you do get the issue with the clipping. Static resources, Facetto light. And then let's compare this to our Photoshop file of what we wanted it to look like. And we'll see how well that compares. So we've got, where is it? Here, without the drawing around. That's a pretty damn close likeness. I'd say that's almost perfect. So let's just close that preview down. And you can see this is now the nice window. It's fully resizable and we're ready to now start adding our content to it. So the next video, that's what we're going to do. I hope this has been useful. It's been quite a big, complicated job. And now you've got this window Chrome, but once we move this out into another style, your window is simply this. You just start writing your, your UI to go in here, and that's all you need to do. So I hope you enjoyed.